Welcome everyone to today's program, Overcoming Obstacles, the Reapplication Process, sponsored by ASDA and the ADA. I would like to introduce our moderator for tonight's webinar, Hillary Wong. Hillary is chair of ASDA's Pre-Dental Advisory Committee and the former District 1 Pre-Dental Chair. She's a biochemistry major attending Northeastern University.
Hi everyone, we're so excited that you can join us for tonight's webinar. The Pre-Dental Advisory Committee has been working super hard this month to bring ASDA Pre-Dentals some great resources to kick off our membership year. These resources include Webinar Wednesdays, special posts from Mouthing Off, which is ASDA's premier blog, and Instagram challenges with lots of great prizes. We also have takeovers on our Instagram, a new manual dexterity Pinterest board, and a brand new Dream School mentoring program that connects pre-dental students like yourselves with students from your dream school. So this is the last full week of ASDA Pre-Dental Month, so it's a great time to invite your classmates to join ASDA and start them on the ASDA Life, which just happens to be this week's Instagram challenge hashtag. Now I would like to welcome tonight's wonderful panel. First, we have Laura Sundmark, who is a second-year dental student at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill School of Dentistry. She is originally from Minnesota and is truly passionate about dentistry and helping others reach their goal of becoming a dentist. Her journey and pre-dental advice and motivation is documented via at the Smiling Dental Student on Instagram. Next up, we have Yeet, who is a third-year dental student at Stony Brook School of Dental Medicine. He is also a wedding percussionist who has been performing at weddings all over Long Island. Percussion is a very therapeutic and a great way to de-stress from a long week of studying, while paying off some dental school debt. Both require diligent hand skills and bring smiles to people's faces. He also shares his experiences on Instagram via @Dr.Percussion. And finally, we also have the source, Nick Hassan. Nick is the manager of test administration at the American Dental Association. The test administration unit is responsible for ensuring that the process of taking the DAT from dent pin registration to sending out scores goes smoothly. Nick is going to be providing some tips for applicants who are retaking the DAT. So first up, Laura, would you like to kick us off with tonight's webinar?
Hey, of course. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The introduction, Hillary. So I just wanted to start out. I guess I was just going to kind of tell my story. Like Hillary said, I kind of share a little bit about myself on Instagram, and I do the Smiling Dental Student. And it kind of just started because I really wanted my story to get out there, because when I was applying to dental school, it did not go as smoothly as possible. So I decided that I wanted to have this resource to be able to reach out and tell my story and tell other people that you're not alone, and that you definitely have a network that you can reach out to. And so the Smiling Dental Student is all about being transparent and being vulnerable, and me just telling it kind of how it is. So I'll start with my story. I'm from Minnesota, and I moved to North Carolina about 6 years ago. I had a mentor that I became really close with. I used to babysit for him and his family, and I moved down to North Carolina after I graduated high school to work in his practice as a dental assistant. I first went to a community college there for while I was getting my in-state tuition, and then I transferred into UNC Asheville. I graduated in 2012 from high school, and then 15 from college, and I have had my life planned out. I remember sitting at a Thanksgiving one year, and I was like, okay, so for me to get to this point in my life, it'll take this many years, and then I'll go to college and it'll be this many years, and then I will be a dentist by this age. So I kind of always had it where I wanted it. I was really lucky to know that I wanted to be a dentist, but it didn't work out that way, fortunately and unfortunately. So I'll get to that in a little bit. But what I really want you to know is that my although I had this stuff planned out, it was interesting for me to be able to look back now and see where I am today. But along this journey, I will say that sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But probably the biggest part for me was learning how to pick myself back up when I did fall or something like that. So like a lot of you guys, I'm sure you took a lot of hard science classes or are taking hard science classes right now where it's like kind of frustrating, or maybe they do go really smoothly for you. But I know for myself, I struggle a little bit. And I actually decided to be a psychology major because I knew I was going to be doing all the prerequisites and I wanted to do psychology. I wanted to know the patient interaction kind of stuff. I wanted to know how to understand people more. So I did a major in psychology and a minor in neuroscience at UNC Asheville. And then, like I said, when I graduated in 15, I had all my prereqs for dental school, and I took the DAT my senior year. And I was graduating like that application. So this is 2015, and you know, a year-long application process can be very intimidating. And so I took my DAT. I would say that I didn't take it as early as I should have. And I applied a little late the first year. So the first year I applied to dental school, I applied to 3 schools. And I didn't really have like the best DAT score. And when I say that like honestly, and I'm not scared to share. I think the first time I took it, I had like a 16, like, and I was like, I'm never going to be a dentist. And it was hard for me, and I was like, you know what, that's not true. I'm going to just keep going. And I tried. So year 2, I applied to 6 schools. So those 3 schools I got rejected from. I didn't get an interview. I, reached out to them, said, what else can I do? I've been volunteering at I have tons of service hours. I've done everything. Like, what else can I do, kind of thing. So just try to get feedback. So the second year, I applied to 6 schools, retook the DAT again. My score didn't go up that much more. And I think the biggest thing was for my DAT scores from the first time to the second time was like being more dedicated to it, setting up more time, making expectations with friends and family, I think was really important. And then, actually just like really setting aside that time, and it was like a full-time job where I just like really buckled down and studied. So I did that. Again, my score was okay, but still wasn't the best. And then reapplied again a little bit earlier this time, got on like maybe a wait list, but I still didn't get interviews. And it was really tough. Like, I was like, wow, this sucks. When I got rejected again from, it was 6 schools the second time. So those 6 schools, I was like, gosh, this like, what am I going to do, And it's like a whole year again, we're waiting. You apply in the summer and then you don't know again until maybe January, February, March. And so again, I applied for the 3rd time, and this time I applied to 16 schools. And now I'm out of college, I'm in between. It's that awkward point. You're not getting student loans pumped at you anymore. You don't necessarily know if you can get a job. It's just kind of a weird point to be in. You have a lot of self-doubt. I went through every range of emotion, and I can like truly tell you guys that if you're feeling this right now, I can understand. And everybody's situation is a little bit different, but I totally get that. So it's tough for sure. But so 16 schools, and I was like, you know what, I can do it this time. So again, I applied a little bit earlier. I think I put my application in like right away when it opened. Then every year I redid my personal statement, and I also made sure that I was always improving and adding to my application and changing and stuff like that. So all in all, I ended up getting a call from UNC Chapel Hill, my dream school where I am today, and they said, we had a snow day, so we rescheduled and somebody dropped out, and do you want the spot? So 2 days later, of course, I'm like ecstatic, and I'm going to this interview, and yeah, after 23 total rejections from different dental schools, 3 years applying, taking the DAT 4 times, I finally got to this point of, I don't even know, I get goosebumps when I talk about it, but it was an amazing feeling because I finally, like, with the grit and the passion and the perseverance that I had been going through that whole time, I finally got there. So I love what I do, and sometimes I joke around and I say, like, oh, just living the dream when people ask me how I am and different things like that, but I am living my dream, and I am so happy that I did not get in the first year and the second year, and as silly as that sounds, but I learned so much, and like I can tell my story and lift other people up, because there's a lot of people that are like, it was easy, or it wasn't that big of a deal, or I just took the DAT and it was fine, and I got in my first try, and it's not like that. There's a lot of more people than you would think that apply more than once, and I really think that you guys, we need to come together and be more transparent and supportive, and really just like build the community around, what can make us better people and stuff. So that's kind of my story. Like I said, I'm really happy where I am. I'm exhausted. Dental school is hard. I slept probably 4 hours last night. I had a pharmacology exam. I have a prostate exam Friday. Like, dental school is tough. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's some days where I'm like, oh gosh, like, have I ate today? Have I slept? Like, trying to keep that balance is hard and all this stuff, but it is so worth it. I love treating patients. I love making a difference in people's lives. And I think even like past just my patients, like in dental school, I love empowering people like you guys, and you're really motivating and being here. So I'm gonna like turn it over. I don't know, I didn't set a timer, I forgot, but I'm gonna turn it over to the next one, but feel free to ask questions at the end, and follow my Instagram, send me messages, the Smiling Dental Student, and I'm more than happy to help answer questions or support you guys along your journey. So. Who is next?
Hillary, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Okay, so thank you so much, Laura. That was such a powerful story of hearing you be persistent, like year after year, until you finally achieved your dream profession. Yeet, your experiences are slightly different. Why don't you hop on and share your story right now?
Sure. Thanks, Hillary. Hi, guys. My name is Yeet. I'm a third-year student at Stony Brook School of Dental Medicine. I had quite a journey getting into dental school, so I just want to share about that a little bit. I know it can be very discouraging. Let me be the first to say I actually got even more rejections than Laura. I also applied 3 times, and the first 2 years, the first year I applied to 20 schools, and the second year I applied to 15, and I was rejected by all 35 in a row. It's very discouraging for sure, but the one thing that I noticed in my third cycle when I was actually getting interviews is that that perseverance is actually really appreciated by the admissions boards at the school, and it actually came up in every interview that I went to. They saw that I applied numerous times and that I was continuing to, and I was even asked by the school that I'm attending right now if I wasn't accepted in this third cycle, what I would do. And obviously, I said I would apply a 4th time because it's what I wanted to do. So the DAT, took it 3 times. 17 was my first score, 19 was the second, and 20 was the third. yeah, if you need to take it more than once to get that score you need, then you should. They're seeing that you're taking it a couple times, but that's okay. You can't let that be the factor that, you can't say, oh, I'm not good enough because I didn't get it the first time like everybody else. That doesn't matter. I have a classmate that's 36 years old, married with 2 kids, and nobody looks at him any different than I do to my 22-year-old classmate. It's okay. People realize it later in life that they want to do this, and maybe they don't get it the first time, but you're treated as an equal when you get into the school, and you're gonna get in. If you just keep trying, it's gonna happen eventually. It may take longer than you wanted. So Laura set out a plan, I set out a plan, and I was nowhere near. I would be graduated by now if I stuck to my original plan. But things don't always work out the way that you want it to. So I was, the reason that it took me so long to get in was my GPA. So some of you may relate to me here. I was a biochemistry major, just like Hillary. It was quite challenging. My GPA when I graduated undergrad in 2014 was about 3.0 to 3.2, somewhere around there. Not competitive. That's not good enough. It's getting harder and harder to get in, and I just couldn't compete, especially with that. I got that 17, but I immediately took the DAT the second time 3 months later. So my first cycle, I did apply with that GPA and a 19 academic average, and it just wasn't enough. I did call the schools, and they told me straight up, your GPA is too low, and you should take the DAT again. That's not what you want to hear, but that was the hard truth. So what I did was a friend recommended this master's program, and it was, this one in particular was at Rutgers in New Jersey. It's called the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences, but there are a couple of them in the country. I know Tufts in Boston has one, and I think Midwestern has one. And these programs are specifically made for pre-medical and pre-dental students, and they allow you to take courses with the first year medical and dental students. And I thought that was a great opportunity to show that I was prepared for dental school. So I applied, and it was accepted. So in my first of 2 gap years, I was enrolled in this master's. It was a 1-year program. You had the option to do it in 2 or 3 months and 60 credits. And I took 2 courses with the first year dental students at Rutgers. And I did well. I did really well there. You kind of have to. You're paying all that money, and you realize this is your last chance. So you give it your all. Everybody does, and everyone did. And looking back at it now, it was the best decision I ever made. Everybody that I attended that program with is now in dental school. So it's a really great program. I have one classmate who also did the Rutgers program. I have another classmate who did the Tufts program. So my advice to anybody with a low GPA, if that's what's prohibiting your acceptance, then I highly recommend you look into these master's programs. They're not cheap. I was about 30 grand, but it's an investment for your future and your career. And if that's what it's going to take to get in, then you're going to do it because this is what you want to do. So I definitely recommend you look into any of those programs. There may be one near you, but there were people all around the country at Rutgers when I was there. They have housing there for you too if you need it. So great opportunity. I say look into that. So the second cycle I applied while I was there. The schools kind of told me, we want to see you finish this program. We want to see how you do. So we're not going to accept you now. So I was like, all right. Had the second year off. Really didn't do anything related to dentistry. I just kind of worked, saved some money, tried to relax. I took the DAT that third time. I did very well. 21 science, 20 academic average. I was very happy with it. I was not going to take it again. rewrote my personal statement. Didn't make too many changes on it. Was pretty happy with the way it was already. My GPA was pretty high from the master's, so I was pretty confident that this third cycle was going to work out for me. So I just kind of worked, saved some money, and then I applied to 10 schools in this third cycle. So I had already been rejected 35 times. So these are the final 10, and I got 5 interviews of those 10. So I knew I did something right. And yep, these the previous application cycles came up, and they always said, hey, look, I see how much you've improved these past couple of years you've been applying. I see you've been working really hard, and they really appreciate that. And that really shows that you're passionate and that this is what you really want. And that's what they want. They want people who really want to do dentistry. And they know that this is their passion and this is the goal that they set for themselves. So, you know, I had no trouble in this third cycle, and I owe that all to the master's program and my perseverance, and the DAT. I'm not going to say it's not important. It is. You guys need a decent score on it. But yeah, hopefully that gives you some insight. If you're in the situation that I was in, low DAT score, low GPA, that's the path I took to get in, and I'm so happy that I did. I ended up at my top choice school at Stony Brook, where I did my undergrad, and it's 20 minutes from my house. You really can't beat this. Like, I'm saving crazy money on housing, and I have in-state tuition. It's just the ideal situation. If I had gotten in to a private school my first cycle, I definitely would have went. I'm not gonna lie. But I'm saving a ton of money now, and getting the best education that I could have hoped for. So I'm very grateful. So if you guys have any questions, you can DM me. That's my dentistry / work Instagram. You can reach me there at dr.profession. And yeah, I'm opening to all questions at the end of this. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Yeet. I think the stories that both Laura and Yeet shared with us can speak to many of us. It's really inspiring to hear you both express how happy you are with the decisions you made, even though the process was really challenging. For those of us who may be considering reapplying, we have to continue to persevere. We have to continue to work harder to improve the weaker areas of our application, whether that's our DAT or our GPA or any other component of our application. And as both Yi and Laura demonstrated, we have to continue to believe in ourselves in order to reach our dream schools. Now, I would like to turn it over to Nick, who will be giving us a little bit more insight into the process of retaking the DAT.
Okay, thank you very much, Hillary, for moderating. Thank you, Brooke and Asda, for having me be a part of this. And thank you most of all to Laura and Yeet for sharing their stories of getting into dental school. As they said, I'm going to talk a little bit about considerations to keep in mind as you're reapplying and thinking about taking the DAT a second time or more than 2 times. And this is information that I have gotten from both working at the American Dental Association as the manager of test administration, but a lot of it just comes from the fact that I've talked to, at this point, thousands of people who've taken the DAT and heard their stories and gathered some tips from them. So Yeet mentioned it, but if you are worried that taking the DAT more than 1 time will look bad to dental schools that you are applying to, I would say do not worry about that. I got that question a lot, and so eventually I did some research on it, and so the numbers that are in front of you on the screen are students at dental schools taking the Part 1 exam and the percentage of them who took the DAT more than once. And as you can see, it's pretty consistently about 1/3 of dental students took the DAT more than 1 time. So I would certainly say it is not prohibitive to have an application that includes more than 1 DAT score. In terms of studying, I will be upfront and say there is no magic tip that I can give you to increase your DAT score. There are no tricks. It just comes down to putting in the work to study for the test and making sure that you are fully prepared. So the ADA, and as you all know, there are third-party organizations that offer DAT study courses. The ADA does not endorse any of them because none of them got their information directly from us, so we can't guarantee that it's true. And we have run into issues in the past where some study groups or study organizations were giving students information that was incorrect and actually led some students to break some of the rules for taking the test. This is not to say that those the third-party study courses are not helpful. I think for a lot of people they can be very helpful, but I think the most important thing that you can do in preparing yourself for the DAT is to make sure that you know everything you possibly can about the test, make sure you know the rules, make sure you feel prepared so that you're as comfortable and relaxed as you can be on test day. I hear from students all the time that they think their anxiety around taking the test affected their score. And so anything you can do to avoid that is going to be helpful. And so these are the quick bullets that I've put together from tips that I've gotten from people and observations that I've made over the years. I've always been surprised how many students that I talked to who did not look at the test specifications for the DAT, which are posted on the DAT website. In the guide, it's pretty explicit about exactly what subjects are covered on the test and how many questions there are going to be in each subject area. So I think that is the number one place to start, is just making sure you know what's going to be on the test. And then based on that, be sort of brutally honest with yourself about your areas of strength and weakness based on those test specifications. And then consult with any faculty or advisors that are available to you at your undergrad or any other program that you may be attending. Let them know where you think you're strong, where you think you're weak, and have them help you come up with a study plan for how to go about attacking that. The next one is where I think the third-party study courses can be the most helpful, is in making a plan on how you're going to prepare for the test. I think that for a lot of people, I certainly would have done this in that situation. If organization is a problem for you, just knowing what you should be studying when can seem pretty daunting. Laura used the terminology that I've heard other students use, where when they're studying for the DAT, they treat it like a full-time job, where for up to maybe 3 months in advance of taking the test, they're studying for between 6 and 8 hours a day, specifically for the test. And maybe you don't need to study that much, but either way, you should set a realistic plan for taking the test. And if you know you're only going to study 4 hours a day, don't make a plan that says you're going to study for 6 or 7 hours a day. You have to be really honest with yourself, or you're going to find yourself having to cram before your DAT, and it's going to raise your anxiety level, and it may affect your score. The next one is to know the rules of the test, to make sure that you don't get in a situation where potentially your score can get voided. This doesn't happen a lot anymore, but it used to happen pretty frequently that people would go to their lockers on an unscheduled break, and generally it was for something that was completely innocuous. They weren't looking at notes or anything that they had prepared to bring with them. But if we can't tell what you're doing, we sort of have to assume the worst, and it may end up having your scores voided. So make sure you go through the guide and understand all the rules. Make sure if you have any questions that you ask the people at the Prometric Center to help you, to make sure that nothing comes up like that for your test. The second to last bullet there, I think, is going to be most important for people who are retaking the test. This test and all standardized tests are designed to be an accurate reflection of your ability at the time you take the test. And so if you don't do anything different than you did when you took the test the first time, you should not expect your score to go up. Essentially, the way I put it to people is, We are accurately measuring your ability level. To change your score, you have to change your ability level. You have to get better at whatever it was, whatever section of the test you didn't get a score that you liked. Unless you felt underprepared, where you just felt like you didn't study enough, you know that if you just studied a little bit more, you could raise your score in a specific area. If you went into the test and you felt fully prepared and you felt good going through the test, and your score just was not where you wanted it, just doing more of what you were doing to prepare for that first test is not going to change your score. We see this happen again and again, where people take the test multiple times and their score does not go up very significantly, if at all, on the initial retake, but that eventually the score does go up because it finally gets through to people that they're going to have to do something different if they're retaking the test. So as I said, the test content is outlined in the guide. This is essentially what it looks like in there, and it is a pretty good breakdown of the issues. Something that I have found that people were not aware of when they initially took the test is the option for test accommodations. If you have a disability that inhibits your whether it be a learning disability or a physical disability, whatever the case may be, you may be able to get testing accommodations for that, as long as it is something that is warranted by your documentation and it is something that we are able to provide for you, whether it be testing in a room that's separate from the test center, the normal testing area, or getting time and a half on the test, or even something like getting extra note boards more than just the 2 that everyone is provided. But I have heard from some people that when they took the test the first time, it did not occur to them to request testing accommodations. So if you are someone who that applies to, certainly do not forget to get the accommodations that you are entitled to. We earlier this year, the ADA made available an online version of the DAT practice test. This is different than the paper version that we had been selling in years past. I don't necessarily recommend this as a study tool in terms of helping you get comfortable with the material. The purpose of the practice test, and where I think it is most useful, is helping you prepare for what the experience of taking the test is going to be like. That is, what it is like to take it on the computer, what the question formats are, and it's also designed so that the timing is similar, so you get a sense of how much time you have to spend on each question, so that you don't end up feeling rushed at the end of any of the sections. And I think that any practice test that has decent questions, whether it is the ADA practice test or something from a third party, is very useful in that regard. I would not rely on any of them, as I said, as a study tool to help you learn the material, but certainly as a tool to make sure that you're comfortable when you're actually sitting at the computer in the test center moving through the test. And so the DAT website has any and all information that you could want to know about the test. That is the main email and phone number, and there is my personal email if you have any follow-up questions. And with that, I will open it back up to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Nick. That was very, very helpful. We'll now be opening up the program for questions. So please remember that you can put in questions at any point into the question box. I'll have all of our speakers come back so that they can answer the questions. All right, the first question is for Laura. Did you have to take the DAT a third time before you got accepted?
I did. So I actually took it 4 times, and I took it 3 times, and then the 4th time I took it like 3 months later, kind of, and it was more of like kind of one of those testing errors that Nick was talking to. Actually, I think Nick and I had talked previously back in the day when I was going through something, but it was I did take it that 3rd time. And that was before my interview. And I remember sitting in my interview and them saying, you know, if there was going to be something, it was the dreaded words I didn't want to hear. They're like, if there's anything that we could change in your application, it would be to bring your DAT score up a little bit more. So it was like something that I just really didn't want to do again. It just like put me in a bad place having to take the DAT another time, like for the, I mean, can you imagine 4 times? But yeah, so I did have to take it again. I did take it 4 times total, but yeah, I don't know. Did that answer? Sorry.
Yes, I think it did. Next question is for Yeet. What did you do differently with your 3rd DAT to make your score jump?
I gave myself more time. Also, I kind of figured out which resources worked best based off of, you know, my past exams. I don't know, am I allowed to recommend? I think so. Yeah, so I didn't use DAT Bootcamp the first 2 times. I thought that was a really great program and website. Like that ended up being my favorite thing and the most high yield, I would say, of all the different resources that I used. Definitely DAT Destroyer is awesome. Crack the PAT was really good. I used Cliff's AP Bio for biology. That I didn't do that the first 2 times either. I read that whole book from cover to cover. I thought that was very helpful. So I think learning the resources that work best was probably what I changed the most. You know, I also recommend that you talk to other students that have taken the DAT and ask them for their advice also, because it's going to vary for everyone. So go around, ask what everyone liked the most, and use those resources. See if they still have their books lying around or something like that. Yeah.
I would agree too, and I also think that the best like success, like kind of going off of what he was saying, is like I used Bootcamp also, but the only thing I didn't like about Bootcamp is that sometimes like towards the end I was starting to memorize their questions, so when I took their comprehensive, I was like getting like higher scores than was accurate. So I think like maybe purchasing a separate test and then like making sure to Nick's point of like really like setting up this time, making sure like you're being true to like, you know, I'm setting from this time to this time and sticking to it, you know, like if somebody asks you to go on a boat over the summer or something and you have your studies time, like you need to be true to it. And I think that was the biggest difference, is like really prioritizing and being disciplined with myself and being like, this time, like, you know, I'm making this way more of a priority. So that's kind of what I feel like about that too.
Yeah, I would say, just going off of something that Laura said, one of the main complaints that we hear from students who use third-party resources for practice tests is that the scores that they get on those practice tests are higher than the scores they get on the actual DAT. So I would be very hesitant to put a lot of stock in the numbers that those practice tests are giving you, which is certainly not to say they're not valuable, but I don't know that they can tell you you're going to get a 21 academic average on this test, because they have no frame of reference for how the actual test is scored.
Did Laura and Yeet also have jobs during undergrad, and do dental schools take that into consideration? Laura, you want to start us off with that one?
Sure, I did. I worked. I was a nanny through undergrad, and I think that it's reasonable. I mean, undergrad is hard and it has a lot, but there's like time, I think, to make time for it. Dental school is a whole other story. I don't know. I think they do take that into consideration with like volunteering and stuff, but you still want to try to make times, you know, whether it's like volunteering on a Saturday or just putting yourself out there and just really showing like, you know, community stuff and getting like, you know, still trying to make efforts to make a difference with service.
I did work throughout all of undergrad, and I'm continuing to work through dental school. I played drums at weddings, and I've been doing it for over 8 years now. And I'm not gonna say that the dental schools take it into consideration. I think they'd rather see that you're committed into dentistry, and if they see that your grades are dropping because of the job, I think they would expect that you would leave the job. To me, it wasn't really an option. Like I kind of need the money, so I never left it. And I told myself when I was going to get accepted to dental school that I was going to leave. I was going to put all my focus into dental school, and I didn't because I just can't. I found a way to make it work. I found a balance, and I'm doing fine in my classes. So I found that balance. I'm sacrificing my own weekend time to work, but I did work. My grades did take a hit in undergrad because of it. I don't recommend it. If you don't find a balance, I'd say don't do it. It did help me with the manual dexterity though, that part of the application where they ask you. So yeah, drumming came up in my interviews, and they kind of like that. So.
Okay, this next question is for Nick. Are the full practice tests offered as a 5-hour timed test or individual tests?
So it is presented as the individual modules, and when it said full practice test, it meant each one of the modules. It's not a full version of the DAT. There's not as many questions in the modules as are on the actual DAT, but the time is adjusted to compensate for that. So you still have the same amount of time per question, but the full practice test is not a complete DAT, so it is not the 4.5-hour test.
How did you modify your application the second time around? Yeet, would you like to start with this one?
Yeah, the second time or the time I got accepted?
Let's go with the time you got accepted.
Okay, so I had the stronger DAT. I had completed the graduate program, so I had a master's degree. I updated my personal statement. Also, I had new letters of recommendation. I think this one helped me a lot. When, like I said, I took some courses with the first-year dental students at Rutgers. I got one of my letters of recommendation from the oral microbiology professor at Rutgers Dental School. I think that really helped me out because he teaches in a dental school, and he wrote me a letter because I did well in this course. Also another letter from one of the graduate courses there. I think that's really important. So I kind of dismissed some of my undergraduate letters of recommendation. I was like, these are kind of dated. These are more recent, and I thought they were more valuable. So I used those. Yeah, all those things to improve my app.
Laura, what about you?
I think that my biggest thing was, I guess I mean, I did change my personal statement every time, and I don't think that I had a big change in scores, unlike you was saying, because my DATs did not improve that much. I think I got into dental school with a 17 or 18 actually, and definitely was my weakest part, but my GPA was good, and but I think it was just showing that I was going to continue to try. I remember that I had a thing for myself that I would apply to dental school 6 times, and after the 6th time I would step back and reevaluate before I did the 7th, but I was not going to give up. So I also think that I changed a lot about my personal statement. Instead of the first time I felt like I was telling about myself a lot, and as I went through I started showing more. So just I picked 3 stories and I told 3 short stories in it. I think show don't tell, I think would be a good piece of advice for that. So instead of saying I'm compassionate and I'm caring and I love being with people, I told a story where I had a little kid, and I was helping in an office, and this little kid was just really scared and sat in the corner, and instead I said how I sat next to him and put my arm around him, and we peeked under our eyes together, just I told the story and let them visualize it. So I think just really humanizing things. And people I got a lot of questions. I was doing a pre-dental event tonight at school, and I keep getting the same kind of questions how do you set yourself apart? How do you make yourself look different? And I really kind of go back to the same thing every time, and it's stop trying so hard to set yourself apart and just really try to be you. Like, try to like show who you are as a person. Try to like really be transparent, because they can see through, like, everybody's trying to do that. Like, everybody's trying to be the same. A lot of these applications look the same, and a lot of the applicants come in and say the same thing. I help with interviews too. So try to be you, try to be transparent, and say your story. Speak from a point of vulnerability, and I really think that can make you successful.
So we've heard a lot about changing your personal statement. Do you advise to change it completely or just make adjustments to it? And what are some of the changes that you made?
Yeah, if I could go. So I did not change it completely. I critiqued it, and here's some of the changes I made and some things to avoid. Let me go over that first. So, like Laura said, everybody that's applying, they kind of look the same. You have to stand out somehow. I mean, you don't want to just you're okay. So they can see right through you, right? You can't be so stale. So everybody says, I want to be a dentist. I want to make people smile. I've been wanting to do this since I was a little kid. These are things to avoid. Do not say that. They just see it all the time, and that's not what you should. That's not what they want to hear. So something different. So what did I do? So in my third application, what I did was I put myself in a patient's shoes. So have you guys ever been like a dental patient? So I had a wisdom extraction, and I told my story in the dental chair, and basically talked about dental fear a little bit, and like how the provider was handling the syringe and the tools and the instruments and making me feel comfortable, and basically put it in that perspective, and then use that to enhance my dental knowledge and basically improve myself as a future provider. So I talked about how that's going to, like, as an assistant, I was a dental assistant for a little bit, how that kind of taught me how to handle and deal with patients, and how it's going to help improve me as a provider in the future. So I talked about that a little bit, show a little bit different perspective, because they're they're reading like thousands of these things. So you got to stand out somehow. So definitely stay away from like those standard go-to cliche things. Just put your own self into it. Like, just show them why you're different. Like, what makes you, why should you really be there? Just tell the truth. That's it.
Laura, what about you?
I did completely change mine. I feel like the first time I kind of told a story, and I felt like I kind of focused on like, oh, like my mentor a lot, and like this is what I did, and I felt like I was just trying to like show off too much of like, this is what I've done, this is what I've done, this is why you should pick me, like, I don't know. So then the second time, I don't really remember what I did the second time. I think I talked about like my journey of like packing my bags and coming along to like North Carolina, et cetera, et cetera. But then the third time I talked about like what it felt like to be rejected and what each rejection did for me, kind of, and then told those little stories. So like my beginning and my ending was like kind of just saying like, really, like, these are like, rejection was like a necessary step for me to find my success. And like I kind of told it from that point of view, and I was like, took it as like every time I was rejected or every time I reapplied, like what I learned, and like, briefly saying this, it's only a page. So I like did that, and then like I said, I just told stories. But yes, mine was completely different all three times.
Okay, so we have one more question. How do you begin creating a new plan of action? Yeet, you want to start us off?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I can take over for you too.
It's hard to do at first, especially when there's a point in the application cycle where you receive so many rejections, and it's so late in the cycle where you're like, okay, I'm not getting in this cycle. It's pretty clear I'm gonna have to reapply. And it's pretty depressing. But at the same time, you have to keep your eye on the prize, and you gotta say, hey, okay, here's my new plan. So if that point comes, or you haven't applied yet and you're unsure if you're going to apply and you're trying to make your first plan, you have to evaluate what needs to be improved. So if you need to contact the schools, do it. They'll look at your application and tell you exactly what it is that you need to improve. And don't take that information lightly. Like whatever they say, you're gonna have to do it in this next year. So take what they say and apply that. So if your GPA is too low, go ahead. I've heard people going into hygiene. If you go into dental hygiene, that's 2 years. And then if you reapply after that, they love that. You know, you have so much dental knowledge already and clinical experience. So that's actually a great idea. The master's will be a little shorter, 1 to 2 years, depending on where you go. That's a great way to improve your GPA. If your DAT is too low, set some time. You need some more time. You have to spend more time on it. Find those resources that are going to improve your DAT score. And that's got to be your life. You know, you got to say sorry to all your friends, no vacations, just for that short time, and ace that thing, because that's what's going to help you get in. So basically, the plan is going to be determined by what your application needs. So the schools are going to tell you that.
All right, thank you so much. Does anyone else have anything to add?
I would just say like set goals and like write them down and say like, you know, here's my goal, and then like what am I gonna do? What do I need to do to get to that goal? Like I always like try to set a goal and then I say, okay, well, you know, what do you need to do? So like pre-dents, for instance, if like they say like, you know, I want to do or I don't know, even like a kid, like if they say, okay, I want to be an astronaut. Okay, so what's halfway to an astronaut? So then you need to go to school, and then what's halfway to getting to school is like doing good in your math class right now. So what's halfway to doing good in your math class? Setting time aside to like practice your math. So it's just like setting those goals and then breaking it down into like chunks that are like doable and achievable instead of like getting overwhelmed by the big process. And that's the same thing with your application. Like make a list, like or DAT study, make a list and like get to those goals and like to feel accomplished. And I think I just want to also say one quick plug on like my favorite book that I read that really changed something for me when I was applying, and it was called Grit, and it's by Angela Duckworth, and that literally, or there's a short TED talk, and I would recommend everybody to like quick watch it or look at that, because it's just the power of passion and perseverance, and it has like a lot of studies in it and stuff, and it's awesome. So that was like really uplifting for me and changing and gave me a lot of motivation. So
All right, well, thank you so much. There is just 1 week left of pre-dental month, but the resources are available to ASDA members 24/7, 365. People who join now will have membership through December 31st, 2019. Next month, ASDA celebrates Advocacy Month through a series of activities, postings, challenges, and a webinar on November 13th. We'd like to thank you for participating in tonight's program. I'd also like to thank our speakers, Laura and Yeet, along with Nick from the ADA, for presenting to us tonight. This program was recorded and it will be posted on ASDA's website and emailed to all participants. Complete the evaluation by Friday and you'll be registered for a drawing to receive an ASDA water bottle. Thank you so much for joining us and enjoy the rest of Pre-Dental Month.